Hi everyone, Frank Spangler for Learning Media Skills. So glad that you have joined us. Today we're going to be talking about switching to a Mac. And if you found this video, it probably means that you are thinking about making the big jump from a PC to a Mac. I was always a PC person for probably 35, 40 years. I've always worked on a PC, but about a year and a half ago, I made the switch to Mac. And so I want to share a little bit about my experience, some of the things that I ran into. Hopefully, you won't make some of the same mistakes that I did. Let's get started. Now, I should say right at the beginning, if all you are planning to do with your Mac is surf the internet and maybe some word processing, you probably can just go out to one of the big box stores and pick up an iMac 24 like this is and be perfectly happy. You don't need a lot of the big bells and whistles if all you're going to do is surf the internet and just do a little word processing, some number crunching, Excel documents, PowerPoint. Those types of programs don't require a lot of resources, and you don't have to worry. But if you are planning to use your Mac for editing videos, then you need to watch this video and learn some of the things that you really need to take into consideration when you are ordering your Mac. Now, I say ordering because that is the best way to get a Mac if you are planning to use it for media processing. That was my first mistake. I was anxious to try out the Mac. I think that's a personal problem that I have. I'm impatient. When I want to try something, I need to do it today. And so I ran out to Best Buy and I picked up this iMac 24. And it actually worked out not too bad, just picking one up at Best Buy. The first thing you notice, of course, is the amazing 4.5 Retina screen that this beautiful computer has. That just blew me away. I've never worked with anything like that before. And, video editing can kind of be tedious and boring. And to have a beautiful screen like this just adds a little bit of flavor to your day and makes your job a lot more pleasurable to have that beautiful screen. I was also very impressed that the screen itself is the computer. I'm used to working with big box computers with your motherboard and your CPU and your memory sticks and your other cards that come in to the back of the computer, your video card, in this huge box that made a lot of noise. Whereas the screen and the computer are one whole unit. I don't have a box under my table anymore. This is my computer. It's just amazing. Love the little keyboard. Wonderful. The mouse. Oh, so beautiful. The magic mouse. We'll talk about that some more in a minute. But I was just really impressed. And I was able to edit video in real time. I downloaded some free software called DaVinci Resolve, and we'll talk more about that in a little bit. Amazing video program, and it's free for those that are just starting out in video. Once you start working with it a while, you'll probably want to get the studio version of it that has the extra features. It's only $300 US. And but to start out, to test things out, that's all you need is the free version. And I would take these the video clips that were stuttering and stopping on my PC, and on this entry-level iMac computer, it was playing in real time. I was just amazed. I was blown away. For the price of a video card for my PC, I had not only a computer, an amazing screen, but I was working in real time again. So I was hooked. Yeah, it took a week or two to figure out all of the differences to the Apple operating system and learning a new video editing program. A little bit frustrating at first, but it was well worth it. Within 2 or 3 weeks, I was just editing away as fast as I was on the other, especially because I was now able to see my video play in real time. So I was pleased. But I did run into some limitations. Just picking this up at Best Buy, I had to settle for a configuration that is maybe not the best for video editing. What it was lacking in was the RAM. It is only 8 gigabytes of RAM. And on my PCs, I'm used to working with 32 or sometimes even 64 gigs of RAM. And to go back to 8 gigs of RAM, I ran into some problems. So if you are planning to switch to the Mac for the purposes of editing video, I recommend going directly to the Apple Store and talking to an Apple guy to help you configure exactly what you need for your purposes. If you don't have an Apple Store close by, next best thing is to go to Apple website in your country. I'm here in Canada, so I'm at apple.ca. But regardless of what country you're coming from, I believe the website interface is identical worldwide. The only difference is going to be the currency. All right, so what do? You want to put together a Mac for video editing. Well, you don't need an iPhone 14 Pro, so what are we going to do? We're going to go up here to this menu option here and select the Mac. That's what we want to do. We want to build a Mac. So click on that, and you'll notice that there's quite a few options. Some of the laptop options these days are actually quite workable for video editing. Even the MacBook Air, if we clicked on that, we see that it is now working with the new M2 chip, and so is perfectly capable of editing video. Now, you might be at the point where you're wondering, should I get a laptop or should I get a desktop for video editing? And it really is personal preference and how mobile you are, I guess. I do a lot of travel and sometimes have to edit in the field, and so I have a MacBook Pro that I take with me when I'm traveling. But when I'm back home, I prefer a desktop solution. So what I think I'll do is just for the purposes of our video today, we'll look at configuring a couple of desktop solutions. If you prefer to have a laptop solution, the process of configuring is almost identical, and so you'll be able to be fine picking out your laptop. So for our first desktop solution, let's take a look at the iMac 24. This is the one that we had at the beginning of our video, the one that I went down to Best Buy and picked up, but found that it was limited. The ones that they stock at places like Best Buy are really designed for 95% of the population that's just going to use it for web browsing and word processing, right? But if you're a video editor, I really recommend you go to the Apple Store and get one that you can configure to have a little bit better memory and internal storage. Let's take a look at that. Let's open that up and see what I would have been able to get had I gone directly to the Apple Store. Actually, in my defense, I think I did go to the Apple Store, but there was a 2-month waiting period. At that point, for an iMac, it was a very popular purchase, and especially if you wanted to configure it with a little bit better RAM and internal storage, you had to wait. You couldn't just go in and walk away with one, and so that's why I went to Best Buy. I think I just couldn't wait the 2 months. Anyway, once you're there at the website, go up and hit the buy button. Don't worry, you're not making a purchase. You haven't entered any credit cards, right? Hit the buy button, and this is where you can configure. And for video editing, I would recommend just going straight over to the right-hand column here and starting with that. You'll see that it has the Apple M1 chip, and the basic configuration comes in at $2,200. Remember, these are Canadian dollars. If you're looking at this in the US, you probably see something more like around $1,800. But what we want to do is hit the select button, and here's where we can add extra features. Now, the iMac 24, as beautiful as it is, you have to remember it's almost 2 years old now. And so it's at a point where Apple is probably going to upgrade it, either discontinue it and replace it with something else, or make it more available with the M2 chips, the M2 Pro, the Ultra maybe. Who knows what they're going to turn this i24 into. So if you're watching this video 6 months down the road, when you go to the Apple Store, you might have a lot more options here. But as of April 2023, this is what you're going to see. Your only real option is to upgrade to 16 gigabytes. Hopefully they'll improve on that and let you add 32, and if so, I would recommend the 32 gigs option here, regardless of how much you have to pay. You'll appreciate it down the road. You'll be thanking yourself. You'll be thanking me for the 32 gigs, because you have to remember, if you're coming from the PC, you might not know this, but you have to remember that these new Macs, with the new Mac architecture, the way they designed the processor, the CPU is all kind of soldered together. I don't know if we can use soldered anymore, but it's all on one chip. The graphics card, the memory, the CPU is all on one chip, and you cannot add extra memory later. You have to do it at the time of purchase. So when you're configuring, whether it's the iMac or some of the other solutions that we'll see in a minute, if possible, get the 32 gigs. Some even offer 64, and if you've got the cash, I'd go for the 64, but at least get 32. As of April 2023, that's not possible with the iMac 24, so you go with the 16 gigs. That's as much as you can get at this point. The other thing I would get is extra storage. 512K just isn't really enough when you're doing video editing. Just your programs and operating system will bring you up to about 300 gigs and doesn't leave you a lot of room for bringing in media to edit with right away from your downloads folder. All right, so 1 terabyte is what you want. I wouldn't go for the 2 terabytes. It might not look bad now. It's only an extra 500, right? But remember that this is what it was, standard. So to change it from the standard to 2 terabytes is $750, at least in Canada. And there are other external hard drives, SSD, Thunderbolt 4 hard drives that you can get these days for a lot less than $750 that have a transfer speed that is 2,000 megabytes per second, a data transfer speed, which is perfectly fine for editing. It may not be quite as fast as the internal storage that comes from Apple, but it's fast enough. 2,000 megabytes per second. And it's a lot less. So I wouldn't shell out the cash for that. I would save your money and put it into other options that might be available depending on what computer you want. But it is good to get at least the 1 terabyte of internal storage. And that's about all we can add. It comes with the Magic Mouse and the keyboard and the screen for a total of, let's take a look, $2,700 Canadian. Remember, it's Canadian. And so just add that to your bag. But remember, it's 2 years old, and you might either want to wait a few months until they upgrade or replace this beautiful option with the wonderful screen, or choose something else. Let's go back to the main menu here and look under Macs and take a look at the other options here for desktop solutions. You have the iMac, which we just looked at. You have the Mac Mini and the Mac Studio. The Mac Pro is still actually more like a PC solution using Intel chips. They haven't upgraded that yet. That's probably coming in 2023, I imagine, that they'll put the Apple Silicon in the Mac Pro as well. But as of April 2023, this option is still basically a PC. All right, so let's concentrate on these three, I think, if you want a desktop solution. Let's take a look at the Mac Mini. This is a very cute solution. Don't be deceived by the lovely screen here. When you order a Mac Mini, all you're getting is this little box down here. So let's hit buy and see what our options here are. Comes in 3 different flavors. For video editing, I would just go ahead right over to the right-hand column again and see what you can do to upgrade that. Out of the box, or just basic, it's $16.99 in Canada, much less if you're in the US. Let's select that and see what we should add to that. All right, you can upgrade the actual processor chip if you want for an extra $375 in Canada. I'm not sure that was necessary. I bought one of these for my wife a couple of weeks ago. I don't think I spent my money on the extra CPU power. The M2 Pro with the 10 core is perfectly fine for video editing, at least at her level. She's not editing in 8K or anything. We shoot in 4K for her YouTube studio, but she edits in HD. So for her purposes, this is perfectly fine. I suppose if you know that you're going to be editing 8K, you'll want to maybe upgrade here. This is where I would spend the money, though. Bring it up to 32 gigs and 1 terabyte of storage. Those are the two that I would add for video editing. Again, for what they're charging for some of this extra storage, I would just go out and purchase the external Thunderbolt 4 external SSD drives with the fast transfer rates. You'll save some money that way. All right, so we are coming in at $2,449, and you might be saying, wow, that's better than the iMac 24. But remember, you still don't have a screen. You're going to have to set some budget aside for your monitors. And third-party monitors are not necessarily cheap to get a good one. And I want to say that it's important to have at least one good monitor in your system. Most video editors will want to have 2 monitors, a 2-monitor setup for their video editing. If you're brand new to editing, you might not understand how nice it is to have the second monitor, and you might start out with 1 monitor. That's fine. But regardless of whether you have 1 or 2, you should have at least 1 monitor that is a high-end monitor, either from Apple or from a third party, that is going to allow you to judge your color grading and your color correcting properly. And so if you're going third party, you might expect to spend at least $1,000 for a good monitor there. Maybe one of these days we'll take a look at the options that are out there. But if you want to see what's available Apple, let's take a look. We can go back up to the Mac here and go down to displays. And they have 2 options here. One comes in at $2,000 Canadian. And notice the other one, the Pro display. 32-inch, 6K Retina display. Wow. Wouldn't that be sweet? However, it also comes in at quite the price tag, $6,299. So, is it worth it to spend the money? You know, I deliberated on this because I recently put together a system for my wife. And she sits in front of her video editing system about 8 to 10 hours a day. And I thought, I just think it's important that she have a good edit experience, that she have a good monitor to work with, since she's sitting in front of it so many hours a day. So I ended up going with this studio display, the 27-inch 5K Retina display. And you might question my purchase there. In fact, when I picked it up at the store, I asked the guy, do you sell very many of these? They're so expensive. And he said, actually, no, we don't sell too many of these. But, he says, it's the best screen out there on the market. I'm not sure why he said that when there's this Pro display, the 6K Retina. But I guess he's talking about, 5K Retina. It's the best 5K, let's say, out there. And really, I've shopped around a little bit, and to get a really good third-party screen, you can spend $1,500. And so it's not much difference. And this has some nice options in addition, and we'll talk about that. We'll get out my wife's screen one of these days and show you all of the extra features that this Apple Studio display has that is not available in some of these third-party monitors that even sell for $1,500. So let's save that for another day. Let's go back and see what other options we have here. Let's go back to the Mac and take a look at, we've done the Mac Mini, right? So the only thing left is the Mac Studio. And you can see right away that it's quite a bit bigger than the other one. It's got lots of ports at the back. Even got some USB. Isn't that nice? Some HDMI. So some nice options on that. Let's go ahead and hit buy. And we just have two options this time. I would say for video editors, you can get by with either one of these. You notice there's quite a big price difference between the two, $2,500 as opposed, they're just double. For video editing, especially if you're just working with 4K as a Mac, you're not having to do 8K video editing, I would say you'd be fine with this first option here with the M1 Max chip. And that starts out at 2,500 Canadian. And let's take a look at our options for upgrading. Well, it looks like you can just turn this into an M1 Ultra for an extra $3,000. Yes, just a simple $3,000 addition. But like I say, you could probably get by with just the standard right out of the box. You probably wouldn't even have to wait to order it in. You could just go to the Apple Store and pick it up. Although you might want to consider adding the extra memory, especially if you are like me and you like to have After Effects open, Photoshop, a few other programs all at the same time as your video editor. You might appreciate the extra memory here. So that might be an addition that you want. And again, the extra internal storage, but I wouldn't go any more than 1 terabyte. And then you're good to go at $3,249. And then all you have to do is pick up just this extra little monitor here for another $2,000, and you're good to go. All right, well, let's say that you were like me and you were just too impatient to wait for the order at Apple. You got one of these and you're wondering, what do I need to do in order to make it work? How can I edit videos on this entry-level system? Let's talk about some of the things that you should probably think about getting. First of all is a second monitor. I don't know if you're new to the idea of two monitors. Once you try it, you can't go back. Now, Apple doesn't really have a good solution for a second Retina screen about this size, the 24-inch. And so you have to go third party. Now, they do have the $2,000 studio display, and that's nice, but it doesn't really match this. It's larger. And who wants to spend $2,000 for your second monitor? You don't really need a Retina screen for your second monitor. It's just basically a reference to be able to choose which media to bring over. And so it's not like your eyes are focused in on that. And you can get nice 4K monitors for around $250 these days. Perfectly fine for your second monitor. The Samsung monitor is what I have. And so a second monitor is probably going to be your first accessory. But you should notice that on the back of here, there's no place to plug in an HDMI. So how are you going to get your second monitor on this iMac 24? Well, you need accessories. And if you go to Amazon.com, you'll find that there are probably 100 different solutions there of taking your USB-C, which all of these ports are at the back. There's 4 of them, USB-C, and converting that into, well, some have the HDMI. Others have a place for your regular USB accessories, like portable hard drives. This one has all of that, plus a way to read your SD cards and your micro SD cards. And so shop around, think about the features that you want to convert to a USB-C connection, and decide what's right for you. But you will need one that has the HDMI if you want your second monitor. So watch for that. I picked up one the other day that I'm quite happy with. It's the OWC. I haven't tried it, but they say that you can daisy chain them and have up to 5 or 6 together. So it's a good solution. Most other solutions that have this Thunderbolt hub are running more like around 400 or 500. And so far, I've only had it a couple of weeks, but so far it's working great. The thing to know is that, and I didn't realize this the first time I bought one of these, I didn't clue into the fact that there's no power on most of these. When you go to Amazon.com, about 90% of these have no power to them. If all three of your hard drives are powered hard drives, then it's no problem. But if you're like me, most of the hard drives that you have these days are the portable ones. If you have a lot of these, if you're a video editor, you might have 20 or 30 of these with all of your archived media. And so you need a way of getting your media into this system in order to edit on your Mac. And how are you going to do that? Well, pick up one of these, and you might be able to get by plugging in one unpowered hard drive, portable hard drive, but you won't be able to plug in two. There's only so much power that's coming off of these USB-C connectors here, and so you cannot power more than one hard drive. And even with the one, I've noticed it sometimes fails on you, and you have to have a powered solution. Now this unit is powered, but it's really more a Thunderbolt solution. If you search hard, you can find the powered solution. See, this has a powered connection. This is an Amazon Basics, but I'm not sure that Amazon makes these anymore. But look around. You'll need one of these, I'm guessing, to convert all of your portable hard drives to USB-C to plug into the back of your Mac. And because it has the powered, each one of these USB is receiving the power that it needs to run these portable drives. So probably what you're going to want to get, at least to start out, is one of these that has your HDMI. That's going to be one of your plugs. One of these that's powered to receive all of your portable hard drives. And that leaves you two more USB-C ports in order to plug in your fast SSD drives. And if you find that two are not enough for your editing needs, then you'll probably want to pick up one of these, and that will expand out your ports to allow you to have more. And you, like I say, you can daisy chain these and be able to plug in, 6 or 7, 10 of these if you need to. I'm looking forward to the day when these are 10 terabytes and only sell for $150. That's what I'm looking for. I've been around a while. The first computer situation that I had for video editing was an Avid solution. It was a 96, I think it was, 97. And I'm telling you, it had to be a RAID array, and there were 5 hard drives stacked up like this in my RAID array. But guess what? They were only 20 gigabytes each. So my total RAID array that cost $40,000 only gave me 100 gigabytes. That's how far things have advanced in the time that I've been doing this. And so I should not complain when I have to spend $200 or $300 for one of these 2 terabyte little hard drives. This is probably 10 times faster than my RAID array was in 96, 97. Just this one little device. And it has 2 terabytes, a lot more than 100 gigabytes. All right, I shouldn't rant about that. I feel a little bit sad about the $100,000 Avid system that I got and only worked for, I think it was 3 or 4 years. I was still paying it off when it broke down. If you're just entering the business these days, be thankful for the economy of video editing today and the amazing price of very, 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 very fast hard drives. No big stacks of RAID array. All right, what else do we want to talk about? Let's talk about this beautiful Magic Mouse. Funny story, when I first purchased my iMac 24, this Magic Mouse came with it, of course, as part of the package. And when I opened the box and took a look at it, I just didn't know what to make of it. I'm looking at it, I'm really naive to Apple products at the time, and looking at it, and I'm saying, well, there's only one button. I played around with it a little bit and clicked, and I said, how could you edit with only one button? I need at least two buttons. I need some wheels to work with. Where's all the wheels? Just could not understand how you could work with a mouse like this. And so I actually gave it away. A friend of mine had a MacBook and didn't have a mouse, so I just gave it to her. I said, I can't use this. I have to use a regular mouse that I'm used to from editing on the PC. And so I just brought my PC mouse over and downloaded some drivers for the Mac and started working with that. It wasn't until maybe a couple months later that somebody pointed out that just by changing a few settings, you can turn this mouse into a two-button mouse. And as you just kind of lightly move your hand down from the top to the bottom, that acts as your wheel. And so with a little patience, you can learn how to use this beautiful magic mouse as you edit. The one thing that I would recommend, though, if you're just brand new to the Mac, and at the same time you're brand new to your edit software, whether that's Final Cut or DaVinci Resolve, if you're just learning the edit software, at the same time you're just starting up with the Mac, then I would recommend that you still continue to use a mouse that you're familiar with from your PC life. Because what can happen is as you're trying to learn brand new software and you're working with a mouse that you're not familiar with, you can run into difficulties and you may not realize it's because it's the way you're handling the mouse rather than a problem with the software itself. I found as I tried to first work with this magic mouse is that if I didn't have my finger in the right place, it was bringing down drop-down menus instead of being able to point and select things. And I didn't realize at first it was because my finger had moved over too much on the mouse and it was acting like a right-click button rather than a left-click button. And I was blaming the software. What's wrong with the software that every time I try and select something, it brings down a drop-down menu? What's going on? And so you might find yourself a little bit frustrated if you're trying to learn two things at the same time. I would learn your software first and then maybe bring your mouse over, or really get familiar with your mouse before you start learning a new software solution. All right, well, that's it for my story on the switching to the Mac. I hope you found it helpful. If so, give it a like. That is probably the best way to promote this channel. And if you're interested, I am going to be making a series on editing with DaVinci Resolve. If you're downloading the free software, but you're not quite sure how to get started with that, watch for my series of tutorials on editing with DaVinci Resolve. We'll see you next time here at Learning Media Skills. So long for now.